Hey, what's going on, y'all? It's me coming at you again with another vid. Well, Joseph Parker wins a 12 round unanimous decision over Carlos Takam in a not so, how should I, not quite the fireworks fight that we were expecting, but then again, it was actually a very good fight as well. so, the way I looked at this fight, this is more on the I'll say the trend or the pace of Deontay Wilder versus Bermane Stiverne type of fight. And the reason why I say that is because there was some there were some moments and rounds where there was a lot of explosion. There was some good exchanges, some explosion, and then there was times when the pace slowed down a little bit in certain rounds, and then it picked back up. Then it slowed down, then it picked back up. So again, for the most part, it was still a good fight, despite that it wasn't quite the fireworks that were that most were expecting. Still, yeah, again, good heavyweight scrap. I would like to say though, Carlos Takam, he for the first few rounds of the fight, he used the back foot strategy, the same tactics that he employed against Alexander Povetkin, which he had some success doing in their fight. Uh, but the thing is that he allowed Parker to out pressure him throughout the first half of the fight, which was quite unusual because Takam is one who pressures you the most than anyone else. So I just couldn't understand why he was trying to use that strategy. I think being because he was trying to allure Parker to come inside and throw some shots. And as I mentioned in my previous video, Joseph Parker is very, very vulnerable when it comes to leaving himself wide open. He was getting clipped with lefts through half of the fight. And to be obvious, it was Carlos Takam's people who actually saw that, looked at the tapes, and they seen the Jason Bergman fight, and they seen how Bergman had some success doing that. So Takam employed that same strategy, fighting off the back foot, allowing Parker to come inside, thus, allow him to pressure him a little bit. But again, it's just like for the most part of the fight, he allowed Parker to pressure him, which is kind of unusual. So I gave the first 4 rounds to Parker based off work rate and based off throwing more combination punches, whatnot. And yes, in the first round, I noticed that when Joseph landed a double jab and a left hook, Takam smiled at him, indicating that he knew from there that power was no joke. He felt it right there, and that's why there was the most part of the fight he was very, very less assertive because he was sometimes just hesitant to commit, even though he's seen that Parker was vulnerable to being open. But Parker did make an adjustment in that situation where he had to keep his right hand up a little bit more to negate the left hook coming in. So that's probably what threw off Takam's timing. However, in the fifth round, Joseph Parker was finding a little bit of success with the body punches, whatnot, but Takam really had Parker rocked in that round. I mean, it was moments in that round where Parker was going to get. It looks like he was going to go. He was going to get knocked out in that fight. But I would have to say, Joseph Parker has an incredible chin, and I mentioned that in my previous video. He has an incredible chin to withstand that punishment that he took in that fifth round. And what impresses me the most about Parker, even though he didn't look quite explosive like you've seen him in other fights, he realized he was going up against a very, very good world-class opponent in Carlos Takam. Okay? He knew, and most of us have expected, and I expected, that he's not going to take out Carlos Takam the way he's taking out other guys. We all know that we're journeymen or, way over the hill past heavyweight contenders like Cali Meehan, for example. So he was going up against a guy who's pretty much still in his prime, even though in the mid-30s, very, very skillful and and very, very how should I say, up launched heavyweight. So he did find the composure to come back from that barrage, maintain his composure, keep his range. He did take some rest in some rounds, like the sixth, perhaps the seventh, whatnot, to regroup. And then in the eighth round, this is where he really loaded up against Takam. He had Takam hurt in that eighth round. That was like probably the most exciting round of that fight. Of course, the 12th round was exciting too towards the end. Yeah, he loaded up a lot. He hit Takam with some barrages of combinations, and he had him hurt. And then Takam came back with a couple counters and hurt Parker. So they were both reeling. And for the most part, Parker, had some. He was blowing real hard. He was really, really gassed in his fight. So yeah, he definitely has, have to work on conditioning a little bit more. So that's one part of his technique he's got to work on to learn to conserve his energy a little bit more before loading up on shots, trying to get Takam out of there. I mean, again, he realized that, given the fact that this is a world class fighter, he felt that there was a moment that he can get Takam out, which was the 8th round. And, again, Takam had a great chin as well. And we've seen that on many occasions, of course, for this Povetkin fight. Yeah, he got taken out in that fight. But, uh, again, very good fight between the two. Very good heavyweight fight. Again, I've seen some comment sections and some people suggest that Takam was robbed. To be honest with you guys, again, for the most part, Takam just didn't have the work rate. He didn't do enough to even persuade anyone to think that he won this fight. Yes, he had some success with the counter left hooks, then decided to, instead of fighting on the back foot, he did apply some pressure in the later rounds to fight on the front foot. But again, he just didn't land effective shots when he's doing it. He was missing most of those shots too. Trying to come in and swing wildly like that he typically does, like he did it against Tony Thompson. He was like really throwing shots in that fight. Very similar to what he was doing with Parker, throwing a lot of wild rights and lefts. So he was just really just winging shots in, but just Parker was just negating it. The thing about Parker, too, even though he left himself open, he did show some decent head movement, too, especially if he was off the ropes, which I didn't really like that he was on the ropes a lot. He's got to learn how to stop fighting, stop leaning on the ropes too often. So, yeah. So again, there's also, I've seen some people suggesting that, Anthony Joshua will be more likely the favorite to win this fight given the performance that Parker gave, which I didn't think it was a bad performance at all, but some would think otherwise. Okay, fair enough. But let me add, though, Joseph Parker was up against a very, very good heavyweight, and this was a very dangerous fight for him to take, especially at the early stages of his career. It is 18th pro fight. So he was going up against a guy, and this is all fairness to Anthony Joshua. I like Anthony Joshua, but let's be real here. Parker went up against a guy and beat a guy who was much better and skillful fighter than world-class than Charles Martin, Dillian White, and Dominic Breazeale. I'm just keeping it real, y'all. He was going up against a guy who was very, again, very world-class, and he beat him in a pretty good, decent fashion. Not quite as impressive that people would expect it. But again, I was still impressed by his composure, his patience, and the ability to mature and to come back from a barrage that the way he did in that 5th round. So, who would you like to see him in the ring next? We all know that he's I think he is the mandatory challenger now to Anthony Joshua's title. So that fight probably won't be made till the following year. But in the meantime, what would you like to see Parker go up against next? Maybe the likes of Jarrell Big Baby Miller, or maybe maybe Charles Martin per se, or there's a lot of good fights that can be made there. Maybe against a domestic matchup against Suleiman Hamano, if Hamano, well, not quite domestic, but Australia versus New Zealand. Hamano's been running off his mouth, so that could be a next fight for Parker that could be made. But let's hope that Hamano takes the fight. So yeah, let me know what you think, y'all. Comment, share, subscribe. Signing off. Peace.